BMW likes to tell people it makes
the ultimate driving machine.
Obviously that's just marketing speak, but it is sort of true. Their cars are good to drive, especially the high performance M versions. And so here's my pick of the top 10 best M cars ever made. At number 10 is the E30 M3, which is the first ever M3 BMW built. It came out in 1986 and it really looked the part with those wide wheel arches and spoilers. In fact, the only body panels carried over from the normal 3 Series was the bonnet, the roof and the insides of the doors. They even created a whole new engine for it, so they didn't use the 2.5 litre straight 670 horsepower engine from the 325i. No, that wasn't good enough. Instead, they built a 2.3 litre 4-cylinder with 195 horsepower. Now this could propel the car from 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds onto 150 miles an hour. In Europe, the M3 was given a race-bred 5-speed dog leg gearbox. Now this means that first gear is down here where second would normally be, and second is up there where third would normally be, because when you're racing, going from second to third is quite important, and that's quite an easy shift to make. Don't know why I'm punching the air. Anyway, in America, they just got a normal traditional H pattern, probably because Americans aren't so used to manual gearboxes and they get confused. Now the car you see here is actually a special edition, Roberto Ravaglia edition. I think he's some kind of touring car driver from around that era. The car has an uprated engine with 215 horsepower, and the vehicle itself, this one that you can actually see, is worth about £75,000 now. I actually drove it and thought, it was good. It's not snappy at all. It's fairly easy and benign. These days, 215 horsepower isn't that much. Still, that wasn't the most powerful E30 M3 you could get. There was an Evo 2 version which came out later with 220 horsepower, and then the Evo 3 was rated to almost 240 horsepower. In 9th place is the E34 M5. Now this came out in 1988, so 2 years after the M3, and it looked rather like the normal 5 Series apart from some side skirts, though these did increase the drag, so it wasn't quite as aerodynamic as the normal 5 Series, which didn't matter because under the bonnet was a 3.4 litre straight 6 with 315 horsepower. This drove the rear wheels via a 5-speed manual gearbox and could propel the car from 0 to 60 in just 6.3 seconds and onto 160 miles an hour. The car also came with adaptive suspension, which was very high tech for its day. Problem is, it's also a bit unreliable, so if you've got one of those cars now, you could be looking at a huge repair bill to get it fixed.
Bouquets are deductible.
Another interesting thing about the E34 M5 is that it's the first ever M car to be available as a touring. Also, it was the last ever M car to be completely hand-built. Nowadays, they're all done by robots. I've actually reviewed an E34 M5, and if you click on the pop-out banner up there, you can watch my video of that car. Back in the 70s, BMW had an affair with Lamborghini, the dirty sausages. Though to be fair, Lamborghini does get about as well. It was owned by Chrysler, and now it's in bed with Audi, isn't it? Anyhow, the two firms worked together to produce BMW's first ever and only ever supercar, the M1. Now, Lamborghini did the chassis, BMW provided the engine, which was the 3.5 litre straight 6 from the E24 M6. It had 277 horsepower, was mid-mounted, drove the rear wheels via a 5-speed manual gearbox and could propel the car from 0 to 60 in just 5.6 seconds and onto 162 miles an hour. Now back in the day, the M1 cost £37,500, which was £7 more than a Ferrari 512 BB. And if you account for inflation, it means that the M1 will cost, in today's money, £235,000. Now that's actually considerably less than the cars fetched today at auction. So there's profit in that. Part of the reason for this is that it's quite rare. BMW only made 453 of the cars, and they gave one of them to Andy Warhol in 1978 for him to paint. That car is now super expensive. And you better not scratch it either, because its paintwork is just so unique. In 7th place is the E39 M5. Now the important thing about this car was that it was the first M5 to get a V8 engine. It was a 4.9 litre with double Vanos, which basically is variable valve timing in BMW speak. It had a dry sump and individual throttle bodies. As a result, it produced 400 horsepower. That drove the rear wheels via a 6-speed manual gearbox and was good from 0 to 60 in just 4.8 seconds, though top speed was limited to 155 miles an hour. The interesting thing about this car is that it actually had a worse steering system than the 6-cylinder normal 5 Series. Because of the big V8 up front, it couldn't use rack and pinion steering, it had to use recirculating ball steering, which is kind of old-fashioned, and it's what they used in the previous generation G-Wagon. Terrible, terrible. Anyway, one of the great things about the E39 M5 is that it's a classic sleeper car. Yes, it does sit slightly low to the ground because it's got load stiffened suspension and beefer anti-roll bars, but it just looks pretty much identical to the normal 5 Series. It was a true sleeper car, and for that reason, I love it. The Z3 M Coupe is in 6th place. Now, the normal Z3 was a bit of a hairdresser's car. I know it's a bit rich coming from a man who owns a Mark II MX-5, but it was. However, the Z3 M Coupe was nothing of the sort. It had a weird shooting brake design and was so distinctive it even earned itself the nickname the Clown Shoe, which is sort of appropriate really. As well as the upgraded bodywork with flared arches, it also had a widened track for improved handling, a limited slip differential, uprated suspension and anti-roll bars, and brakes from the E36 M3. It also got that car's 3.2 litre straight six engine, which had 321 horsepower, and later on got the 3.2 litre straight six from the E46. Unfortunately, it didn't get that car's 6-speed manual gearbox and had to make do with a 5-speed manual because it was so short, the car, you couldn't actually fit the 6-speed in it. Still, it had impressive performance. 0 to 60 took just 5.1 seconds, while top speed was limited to 155 miles an hour. Not bad for a car which was also nicknamed the Bread Van. I don't know why I had 2 nicknames, it just did. Both quite appropriate really. In 5th place is the E60 M5. This car's party piece is, of course, its fabulous Formula 1 derived V10 5 litre naturally aspirated engine. It is glorious. In normal mode, it will produce a rather healthy 400 horsepower, but if you press the power button, it will give you a full 500 horsepower. Now that's good to propel the car from 0 to 60 in just 4.7 seconds, and if you pay to have the speed limiter removed, it will go on from 155 miles an hour all the way up to 190, which is insane for a family car. It also sounds awesome as well. Have a listen to this. Glorious, isn't it? What's not so glorious though is some of the problems this car has. You see, it can throw a rod bearing, and if it does that, you're looking at massive repair bills because it could write off the engine. Then there's problems with the automatic gearbox and the pumps which power it. They can be costly to replace as well. In fact, the car can be a bit of a money pit. Annoying thing about it is that in Europe, we only got the automatic gearbox. It's a robotised manual, a single clutch, SMG with 6 speeds, and it's really jerky when you drive it. For some reason though, in America, they got a manual version. Why? Another interesting thing about the M5 is that you could also get it as a touring. They're rarer, but they're undoubtedly cooler. Now, if you'd like to watch my review of the E60 M5, click on the pop-out banner up there in the top right-hand corner of the screen to watch the video. The 1M Coupe is in 4th place. So this was the first time the 1 Series got the M treatment. Though interestingly, it didn't actually get a proper M engine. Instead, it used the normal 3 litre twin-turbo straight six from the Z4, though with 340 horsepower, it was still quick enough. So that drove the rear wheels via a 6-speed manual gearbox and could propel the car from 0 to 60 in just 4.9 seconds and on to 155 miles an hour. However, underneath the skin, the 1M was a proper M car. In fact, it was almost identical to the E92 M3. It used that car's brakes, suspension, suspension control arms, rear subframes, and rear limited slip differential. As a result, it was a bit of a beastie to drive, because when you combine that setup with the power and the short wheelbase, you got a car which was pretty twitchy on the limit and did like to go sideways very, very quickly, especially if you press the M button on the steering wheel, because then you've got an extra 50 Newton meters of torque for lighting up those rear tyres. Now we come to the countdown of the top 3 best M cars ever, and in 3rd place is the current M8 competition. So back in the 90s, BMW actually tried to develop a V12 M8, but that never happened, and we had to wait until now to get an M8. And it has a 4.4 litre twin-turbo V8, and in the case of the competition, this produces 625 horsepower. It drives all 4 wheels via an 8-speed automatic gearbox with a normal torque converter, not a clever dual clutcher like in some other M cars. Still, it does have launch control and can go from 0 to 60 in just 3.2 seconds. Top speed is limited to 155 miles an hour, though if you pay BMW £2,000, they will restrict it and then it will do 190 miles an hour. If you want to, you can press a button to put the car from four-wheel drive into two-wheel drive mode, so you can do massive skids. Good if you're on track, though this is not really a track car. It weighs almost 2 tons, so it is rather heavy. If you want to see just how quick the new M8 competition is, then click on the pop-out banner up there in the top right-hand corner of the screen to watch it destroy a Ferrari in a drag race. This just goes! In second place is the M635 CSI, also known as the M6 in America, which is a much more sensible name for it. So it was released in 1983 and it used the same 3.5 litre straight six from the M1 supercar, only tuned up slightly, so it now had 286 horsepower. So this could propel the car from 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds and onto a top speed of 158 miles an hour. The car was based on the normal E24 6 Series, so it had that beautiful sharp nose look. Though at the front it also had a splitter, whereas at the back it had some deeper bumpers and a little spoiler and that centrally mounted exhaust, which I really like the look of. Underneath the skin though, it was quite different. So it had a rated suspension and brakes, a stronger chassis and a beefed up gearbox to cope with the extra performance from the engine. To me, this is one of the best looking BMWs ever, and you can still get them now in good condition for £50,000, which I actually think is a bit of a bargain. So go snap one up if you can afford it. At last, we come to the very top of the pile, the #1 best ever M car. And I can reveal it is the E46 M3 CSL. Now the normal E46 M3 is a pretty blooming decent car, but BMW made it even better for this limited edition version. So they stripped out a load of weight, fitted lighter windows, composite body panels, a carbon fibre roof, and they reduced the weight by 110 kilos to 1,385 kilos. That obviously helped improve the performance, as did an uprated 3.2 litre naturally aspirated straight six petrol engine, which now delivered 360 horsepower thanks to retuned internals and a more aggressive cam profile. Also, the car had a carbon fibre airbox, and as a result, it sounds absolutely awesome. As well as improved noise and performance, the car also got a rated suspension, brakes and a quicker steering rack as well, and that made it even better to drive and quicker round a circuit. It's also got semi-slick tyres as well for improved corner handling grip, though of course it's quite easy to still white up the rear tyres and do big skids in it. The M3 CSL is an absolutely gorgeous car. The only fly in the ointment is a 6-speed robotised manual SMG automatic gearbox, which is just a little bit clunky. No wonder many owners actually convert them to manuals. Now if you fancy buying an E46 M3 CSL, they are quite rare, less than 1,400 were made. As a result, they hold their value very well. You're looking at easily over 50 grand for a decent one. Now if you'd like to see an E46 M3 go up against other generations of M3, click on the pop-out banner up there in the top right hand corner of the screen to watch my comparison drag race and review video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like. Also, let us know what you think of our list. Did we get it right? Do you agree with it? Maybe you have a better running order. In fact, if you have, let me know it in the comments below. Or let me know of any important M cars you think we missed out and should be on the list. I'll be checking out your comments and see if I agree with them. Now, if you want to watch some more videos involving M cars, click on the windows below. And if you click over there, you can download the new CarWow app. And that'll let you do things like watch our videos, compare reviews, check out the best deals on any new car, and also use our special car valuation tool when you can use the camera on your phone to read the number plate of any car and you'll get a valuation back on it. You may as well download it, it's free. Also, below the video, there's a carousel of our new range of merchandise, so you can get hoodies and t-shirts with CarWow on them and some other logos. Go check them out. Thanks for watching.